Good evening. Shall we settle down and get this show going tonight? Good evening, leaders, creatives, authors, writers, aspiring authors. Welcome to the South African State Theatre. Glad you made it. I'm sure you all are curious how you ended up here tonight. Aren't you? Well, I dared hope, and hope responded positively. So I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw that there's a Black Authors Matter tour in South Africa. And I dared Nico, sent him an email. So, you are in the country and you have not been to the South African State Theatre. How do you feel about that? Nico then responds and says, when do you want to do this? Well, I was thinking more around a partnership in 2023, having the tour here. And Nico says, no. Let's do a networking evening on the Friday night. I said, that sounds like a plan. And here is the plan unfolding, and we are here tonight. So for all of you that dared, a round of applause. My name is Nomvula Violet Moloko, and I'm the Manager Strategic Support to the Artistic Director of the South African State Theatre, Mr. Obrisa Khabi. But I stand here under delegation because our leaders are here. Our CEO, Dr. Sibongiseni Mkhize, an award-winning author himself, is in our midst. Dr. Mkhize, he is hiding somewhere at the back. Our member of council, Dr. Lance Nawa. Oh, you eventually spotted the man. Dr. Lance Nawa, our member of council, is with us, also an author himself. And I'll also take the opportunity to also introduce Advocate Manya, who is a relative of Charlotte Manya Matleke. I am convinced some of you have heard of her because 2021 was the year of Charlotte Matleke, who was an activist, and I believe she spent some time in the States. So the advocate is just behind you with a khaki shirt. Advocate Manya, we acknowledge and welcome you. I also wish to welcome my other leader, our Associate Artistic Director, Mduduzi Nhlapo, an award-winning choreographer, sitting over there. And let me also acknowledge our host for the conversations with the author, Deborah Ditinti. Where are you hiding? And there she is. It gives us great pleasure to be here tonight, and I want to also try to connect the dots as to why I thought this is a relevant gathering for us to have. We host a conversation with the author, which is a platform that we have opened up for authors, whether it's a newly published book that we will launch here, or a book that is already published and we are interested in having a conversation with the author. So I obviously saw the Black Authors Matter, and I thought we have conversations with the author. So definitely there is a dot to connect, right? But what do you think will be happening next year? Wouldn't it be amazing for us to have a conversation with the author in the States? That year doesn't sound like somebody's going to fund our flights. In South Africa, we say it's dodgy. It's dodgy. That year is dodgy. But either way, if you decide to come here again next year, we will be hosting you here again. And on that note, before I start reciting the book that I wrote, let me invite onto the stage Nico Too Good, the man who dared answered to hope. Nico.
Hello, everybody. So we have a couple of panels to present to you all today. Our message is very simple. Our authors will tell you who they are and how they connect the dots in literacy and how their works are healing the world and the nation. And today I'm going to start off with my children's book panel. I'm bringing to the stage with me Dr. Pamela Gurley, Tekenya Johnson, Lisa Young, I have Tiffani Teachy, and Shermaine Perry-Knight. Everybody comfortable?
Should I take that?
So those who know me, and most of you all do, know I am very fluid in situations. And so this is a space that is safe, it is endearing, and it is timely, and it is relevant, but also futuristic. And so I want you to relax, to breathe, to feel, to empathize, and understand that everyone in this room is qualified and worthy of what is in front of them, what was behind them, and more importantly, what is to come. So these authors, some of them I've known a very long time. Tiffani was a part of my first book tour ever in Atlanta. Dr. Pam started year 2 and to this point, and these are my new adopted family, as I call them, my babies. So today I want you all to introduce yourself, introduce your book, and let's have some conversations on the future of literacy and how you are penning it every day. We'll start with Shermaine.
Good evening. My name is Shermaine Perry-Knight, and my book is called Faith's Freckles. The reason that I wrote this particular book is I want every child to see themselves as beautiful inside and out, and I believe that starts with celebrating our skin, our hair, our nails, our dark lips, all of the features that someone may not find as traditionally beautiful. The future of literacy is incredibly important to me because how a child views themselves and what they see in a book determines their future. If you feel good on the inside, that creates limitless opportunities for you on the outside. And so I'm happy to be a part of the conversation today around children's literacy.
Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Young. I'm the author of The Incredible Dreams. And I wrote this book because I want every child to know that their dreams can be realized. As a young child, I wanted to write a book. We pay much attention to making sure that we are telling everyone what to do tactically, having our kids know to do great in school, making sure that they know that they have to do certain things in the world in order to achieve. But the one thing that we haven't really focused on is their mindset. We need to focus on their mindset to let them know from the very beginning, at the earliest ages, that if they believe it, they can absolutely achieve it, and it does not matter their gender, it doesn't matter their economic conditions, it doesn't matter their race. We just need for our babies to know that they can achieve anything that they can believe. So this book is for that reason, and I'm so excited about being here. It's a pleasure to be a part of this tour.
Thank you. Dr. Pamela Gurley.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Pamela Gurley. I am the author of the multilingual Brown Girl and Brown Boy series, as well as the curator of the National Brown Girl and Brown Boy Kids Red Carpet Book Tour and Literacy Festival. And my book series, I think it's like 23 books because they're written in English, French, and Spanish. I really believe that representation means something, and representation is beyond color. It's culture, it's language. So when I developed my book series and created it, I wanted every family, no matter what language you spoke, to be able to have time with their children. My books are also psychosocial and social-emotional because I believe children need to be fed from the inside to the outside. And then last, I created my book series because there are more books that have several other animal characters or make-believe characters than they do actual black characters. And if we want our children to fall in love with books, they need to see themselves.
Tekenya.
Yes, hello everyone. I am authoress Tekenya K. Johnson. I am the author of Rosebuds Glow, Beauty in All Things. There is a quote that says, if you want to hide something from black people, put it in a book. The colonizers thought that we were so illiterate that we wouldn't even pick up a book to read. It inspired me to start writing so that brown and black children would see themselves in these books. I teach in my books how to discover who he and she is. It is important that our children know who they are, believe in themselves. And as an author, I'm on a panel with all of these beautiful black women. It inspires me to become a better person. So I want to inspire our children because our children are the future.
Yes, yes. Tiffany.
Hello, my name is Tiffani Teachy, and I am author of What Can I Be? STEM Careers from A to Z. The reason I wrote this book is because I am also an engineer, and you don't get the opportunity to see many black female engineers. And so when I go and talk to the kids, I ask them, how many's met an engineer? And not many hands goes up. So it was that moment when I said, I need to put this in writing. And so that's what made me say, okay, let me write this book so they can see some representation, because representation matters, as we've spoken already. Me, I already live it every day. So I want these kids to be able to see the diversity that's needed and why they should be in it, and they are just as important and can do it as well. So that's why literacy is important, why we need to see more of us in it, and why kids need to see more of us in it, and writing as well, see the authors as well. So that's why I decided to write the book and be excited with it.
Thank you. I think the magic of this whole moment is that you are taking your books a step further. Some of you all didn't know me. You put up your hard-earned money and you trusted yourself in God to take charge in literacy. You lead by example. I want to pose the question to you about how us as older people, as adults, really opening the world to kids and leading by example, and why that's important in literacy. Why it's important for them to see us, not just in the book, but outside the book, into the journey, on the airplane, traveling to the unknown. They will tell you, they barely knew the hotel they were staying in with me. They ventured into sight unseen, because that is what literacy is. It is truly penning words to paper and not knowing where it will go, but feeling whom it touches. So tell me your experience of, putting literacy on the forefront, leading by example, and showing up so that these next generation of children can show out. I'll start with you, Ms. Lisa.
Well, I know for me, literacy has definitely changed my entire life. Literacy gave me the opportunity to be deemed as intelligent, so that I got special attention in school, so that people thought that I could achieve. So there were some points and times in which I heard it from teachers, but we know the outside world is always telling people who look like us, black and brown people, that they cannot achieve, that they're lesser than, and we're battling those two concepts. So for me, when I think of literacy and how important it is, that's the very first step into any child's education, any adult's education. If you're not literate, you can't do much. You can't read contracts. You can't purchase a house. Your opportunities for jobs are so much lesser. So for me, making sure that every child reads, they know how to read, but they're also getting those concepts behind the reading of the book and the words, meaning that they can actually achieve. Think about vision. Think about reflection. Think about those things that you know that you can do in order to be or become literate and become a better person or the person that you want to be. So for me, literacy has really opened up so many doors. I couldn't have gone to college. I wouldn't have been deemed and able to get a scholarship. That's the only way I could have gone to college, was on scholarship. So literacy is so important, and we have to make sure that we are telling our children and showing them how important it is. So that's why I wrote this book. It's extremely important.
Very much. I want to pivot to you, Tiffani, because you work in the realm of STEM. And in the States, and I'm sure here in South Africa, there's a very big push to see our women of color be recognized. Because they're there, they're in STEM, but recognized beyond what the look should be, but understanding the human and the individual to be able to live in their femininity, in their freedom, and to really break a new level of glass ceiling. I would love for you to speak on your journey and how you're fighting that fight for that young girl who wants to be in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics.
Right. This hits home. I was that curious girl sitting in class, in math class, asking the questions, sitting in the front. And just knowing that there are other girls in that class where you're challenged with boys and all that, that they need to be able to be empowered, know that they're just as smart and intelligent just like them. And I think that's the biggest piece why I start early. I start with K through 2, just because that third grade level is when they make their decision as far as testing, where they're going to go with their kids. So starting early is what I would say is really important when you talk about trying to engage the girls and trying to encourage them. Yes, it's been a challenge. When you walk into some of the rooms as an engineer, being the only black female walking in the engineer, but you know you're just as competent. You deal with the imposter syndrome. You deal with all of that, but just empowering representation. If more females get to see themselves in it, encouraging, empowering, I think that's what's key and why it's needed much more than ever, now more than ever. So that's why I say it's important, especially starting early, to empower our girls, to let them know they just as important and smart and competent and can do it just as much as all the rest of the ones that think they know it, but really you know it. So that's it.
I greatly agree. And the word that sticks out to me is inclusion. And so I know that, Shermaine, that's a very big topic in your book, through your personal journey, and think that you've been through diversity, but more so on the inclusion side, making sure that we, as people, as we bring each other up, we also see each other. One thing I speak on a lot is I'm black and ... And that is the inclusion factor. We are already diverse because we're black. We're always going to be the pepper in the salt, if you will. But what other seasons are there? What other aspects and adjectives make us individual and why they're important? I think you can speak to that very well.
Of course. And so in all of my books, I choose diverse characters, multiracial characters, multicultural characters, because that is the world we live in. We have people that are of all backgrounds and they have mixed families, and those children need to see themselves in books as well. To speak to the inclusion, I walk in the room and I'm typically the youngest. I'm typically the only woman in there. And it's a point of power. While Tiffani said it is, you do feel the imposter syndrome. I want other children to see us and say, I can do it because she did it, because he did it. This person is here as well. And for me, it's about empowering them to say, you don't have to invite me to the table. I have my own table over here. I'm gonna serve my own food over here, and you can come be over here with me, because I don't just wanna be a part of your table. I wanna build my own, and I wanna create opportunities for people that look like me. So literacy is so important because you're giving them the freedom. You're giving them a level of independence that you would not have otherwise. Financial independence comes with literacy. Physical, emotional, mental independence. And so that inclusion is far beyond what we're thinking. We're past race, gender, class. We're thinking of things that, the social emotional aspect of it. The chains that we had as we grew up, the things that we dealt with, the next generation will never have to deal with, because people that look like us are changing the narrative of literature and the face of the characters.
I love that. As you talk about faces and narratives, I want to pivot to authoress Tekenya, because I've had the opportunity to marvel at how you read to the children and how you really paint a level of imagery. I got to see you in Jackson, Mississippi back in about May, June, and it was amazing. It reminded me of story time when I was a kid. And I want you to talk about that connection of you as an adult really painting a picture that is so vivid it becomes reality for the youth.
We are all walking billboards, navigating through life's challenges. We all have a responsibility to our children and to other children. As we navigate through this life, through challenges, we must stand up for what is right. Stand up for others, because others, they need to know that someone is there for them. They may not have the bravery to stand up for themselves, but if you would stand alongside of them, they could begin to gain that courage. It takes courage to stand up. Stand up for me, audience. Stand up for me. It takes courage to stand up. Now sit down. So how hard was it for you to stand up versus to sitting down? Anybody? It was real easy to sit down, but it's hard to stand up for your brothers and for your sisters, especially if you don't have the courage yourself to stand up for what is right. So I teach children to stand up for what is right. Stand up for justice. Stand up for your brothers. Stand up for your sisters. Stand up for your nation because it is important. Us as a black nation, it is important that we stand beside our brothers and our sisters.
And as we take this stand, we have to remember how we expand in the stand, and we teach, and we grow. And so Dr. Pamela Gurley, your book is multilingual. You set one premise, but diversified in language. You expand knowledge through not just reading, but through the tongue. African American kids can see themselves in English, Spanish, and French. And when I think of the power of what you write, I marvel at it because now I want to know where Spanish language comes from. I want to know where French comes from. You give children the hope to see more. So I want you to talk about that writing process for you.
You know what? I have to say I'm very gifted. I'm a full-time writer. I think that's one. I know the power of literacy. I know the power of storytelling. And I know that every person that I've ever written on or written for, children or adult, their stories are their superpower. And I take responsibility in bringing that superpower and showing the world who this person is, or giving that young boy or girl that is black and brown their own superpower very early on. My books, most of them are between the ages of 2 and around 12 years old. There's such an instrumental age at the very beginning to have these stories and be able to read, and not only just read and see themselves. I'm like you, I believe in diversity. I had my, I don't know which book this was. I write a book every quarter. So one of my books this year that I released, it was either the first or second one for this year, I had my first hijab girl. Because I think it's important that when there's young girls in schools that wear hijab that might feel bad or kids might not understand. But when they open up a book and they see the diversity in every color and also see themselves, but my books always go back and say, love yourself for who you are. I show them to be engineers, carpenters, and give them things that are not normally exposed to children because I was not always that exposed. I grew up between DC and Georgia because I'm a military brat. In Georgia, in school, never really saw me in books. But I was also never black enough. I was always too articulate. My hair looked different. What are you mixed with? And growing up and 5 and 6 and 7 years old, having to answer that question that's constant from adults and children, imagine what that does to children. And I feel like I have a responsibility as an auntie, as a sister, as I'll say pseudo-grandmother, and I have a responsibility to them to show them that they don't have to be exposed to the things that I was exposed to. And if they are, guess what? They have that superpower. And so just really quick, that's what made me go to do the tour. I needed them to see more than me. So having and curating a book tour where children get the power of not just my books, but every child's author's books. And literacy is really life. It's how we connect with the world. I mean, it's the tech that we communicate with. It's not just words on a book. It's how we literally function and the context of things that we learn because, I mean, if we're honest, any child can memorize words on a page, but can they connect with them? So children are very visual learners. So my job is to not only bring the words, but bring the illustration that's going to add to that power and give them their own superpower because guess what? They see themselves in a sea of others. And I remember being told years ago when I first started working for the federal government in my late 20s, I was told you can always tell an eagle amongst a flock of sheep. Always soar. And that stayed with me as I built my career in a very small amount of time and made it very far than most people make it in 30 years. And so this is what we do. We are all eagles. And we choose not to be the sheep. We choose not to run with the sheep, and that's the power that we give to children.
I think that you all have brought some amazing knowledge to this stage, and I'm soaking it all in, honestly. I am blessed to be connected and connector, and to borrow from you, and to lend back in this exchange in literacy. I don't know about you, but I feel as though our future is very bright because of these authors, and I feel like we should give them a hand. Thank you all for once sitting with me, for traveling with me, for putting up with me, for loving me and growing with me. It has been a journey together, but I would never, ever, 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 ever choose anyone else. You all, again, are blessed and ordained for this. Again, our future is bright because you are penning it every day and you live it. You are sight unseen. You are voice unheard. Your essence speaks through culture. Your essence is so powerful that it traveled from the U.S. to South Africa and manifested this. And I thank you.